Hi guys, today I want you to imagine you're a network engineer and you've been asked to go out on your first exhibition or first job to a customer site to install some equipment. So the customer has asked you to install a switch, for example. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use Packet Tracer to simulate, if you like, installing this new switch. Okay, so as you can see on my screen here today, I've got a PC, a laptop if you like, and I've got a switch. And there's no configuration on the switch as of yet. The first thing that I would need to do is, obviously, I would need to connect to this device. And in order to do that, we would need to use what's called a console cable. And I'm going to click on it. It's a blue cable, and I'm going to connect to the RS-232 port on this particular PC, and I'll connect to the console port on the switch. So in order to obviously connect to that switch, then if I was using a real laptop, maybe a Windows or a Mac machine, what I would need to do is I would need to have what's called terminal emulation software installed on that machine. Now, obviously this is a simulator, Packet Tracer. So how I can do that is I can actually go to, for example, back to our PC, and what I can do is I can essentially go into our terminal, which is kind of doing, it's opening like a terminal emulation application. And you'll notice here that I get access to bits per second, which is 9600, data bits of 8, parity of none, stop bits of 1, and flow control of none. We can use all of those defaults and connect. And what you'll notice then is we actually connect to the switch. So this is like me sitting in a communications room with my laptop, connected to the switch using my console cable. And from here, I can go in from user mode, I can move to privilege mode using the enable command. Once I do that, I've now got more access to the switch, and I can go into conf T mode or configure terminal mode. Okay, conf T is short for configure terminal. Once I do that, this allows me to move into the mode that I can actually start to configure things on the switch. So let's say, for example, one of the first basic device configuration activities that you might do is you might set the hostname of the switch. So in that case, I could type in the command hostname followed by the name of the switch, the name that I'd like to give the switch. So in this case, I'm going to say switch 1, and you can see straight away my prompt has changed to switch 1. Now, that's not stored on the, if you want to think of it as the permanent memory. At the moment, this is saved in RAM. It's saved in what's called a running configuration file. And I can actually see this running configuration file. So if I type in show running config, this shows me the configuration file. So you'll notice there straight away when I typed in the command here, I get this output building the configuration, and from here, this is all my configuration. And you can see one thing that I've particularly changed is this switch 1. And if I press the spacebar to go down a screen at a time, I can see all of the default settings that are on this switch. Now at the moment, we can see all of the different interfaces, so these are the actual ports on the switch, and I can see some console and some virtual terminal lines. So at the moment, there's very little configured on the switch. Now, in this particular video, I'm going to show you some basics to get set up, and we'll see how we do for time. But what I would like to do is, as we've saved this now, if the power went off in the switch, we'd actually lose that change. So it would power back on, and it would look for what's called the startup configuration file. And at the moment, we haven't copied the RAM contents, which is the running config, into the startup config. So in order to do that, I can use the command copy run to start. Now again, that's the shortened version of the command. I could have said copy running config to startup config, but in essence, this shortened form does the same thing. So it says, where do you want to save this running configuration to? Do you want to save it to the startup config? And that's exactly where I want to save it. So I'm going to press enter. So that's now copied, if you like, my running config into what's called a startup config. So when my switch reboots or reloads, it will load up the configuration file of that startup config, and it will know switch 1 hostname has been configured. So let's just move on to the next thing. What would happen if I wanted to, excuse me, connect to this remotely? So let's just take a quick sup of tea. So what would happen if I wanted to connect to this remotely? Well, at the moment, I can do things on the console, but if I want to do something from back at my desk, on the main floor and connect to it over the network, I wouldn't be able to do so. So I'm physically, I have to be connected to the switch. So you might say, well, how could I allow that? Well, there's one way that we could allow this, and it's what we'd need to do is we'd need to put an IP address on the switch. Now, as you can see, this is a typical layer 2 switch, and layer 2 switches don't need IP addresses to switch traffic. However, to connect to them remotely, we would need to have an IP address or to manage them remotely. And in order to do that, we use what's called a switch virtual interface. And on a brand new Cisco switch, every switch has a default VLAN 1. Okay, so what I can do is I can set up an IP address on this switch virtual interface on VLAN 1. And in order to do that, I'm going to move into configuration mode and I'm going to go interface VLAN 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an IP address on this. So I'm going to say IP address 192.168.1.1. And I'm going to give it a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. And once I do that, by default, the interface, the VLAN interface is down by default. In order to turn it on, I have to type in no shut or no shutdown. Once I do that, it's going to bring this virtual interface up. Now, you might say, well, how can I see this? If I press Control C and return back to privilege mode, I can go Show IP Interface Brief. And what this will do is it will show me all of the status, if you like, of all of the interface connected. Now, these are all, if you like, think of these as the actual physical ports on the device, but you'll notice down here at the bottom I have VLAN 1 with its now IP address, and you can see from a physical perspective it's now gone into the upstate because I did that no shutdown command. But you'll notice that at the moment from a layer 2 perspective it's still down, so it doesn't have any computers connected to it on a physical port because all of these ports are on VLAN 1 from the very get-go. Okay, by default it has, at the moment, there's no port connected, there's no computer connected to this on one of these. Now, again, I showed you in the last video, if you're looking at getting started with Packet Tracer, you can also go into physical mode here, and you can see at the moment, again, I need to go back up, there's my console cable going into this switch. But at the moment, we can see there's no PCs or nothing else connected to this. So what if I was to connect a PC to this? Well, if I was to connect a PC to this, it would actually bring that VLAN interface up. And you can see if I just hover over the interface, again, the switch, you can see in this case, you can see that it's still, we've got VLAN 1, it's up, it's on VLAN 1, the IP address is there, but when we do click into that, when I go back to my PC, we can see that still, that's down. So I need to add a new PC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, I'm going to add a PC, and let's add 2 PCs, because maybe what we'll do is we'll do a quick ping check when we're finished with this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this PC over, so I'm going to connect to the fast Ethernet port, and I'm going to connect it to fast Ethernet 1, and I'm going to connect this guy, PC2, over to, let's say, fast Ethernet 2. So that's going to take a little bit of time for what's called the protocol, spanning tree protocol, to come live, about 30 seconds. But eventually this is going to go green on both sides. If I wanted to go back to physical mode, okay, I can see there's now 2 ports connected. So fast Ethernet 1 and fast Ethernet 2, and we can see they're actually connected there. You can see this is connected to PC2 and this is connected to PC1. So let's go back to our logical view. Now at the moment, essentially still, this guy can access the switch. Okay, so, and you can see, I've just clicked onto this and you can see there's been a whole plethora of activity going on here. So you'll notice these status messages have flickered on. And you can see that when I've connected up these PCs, the switch has realized this and shouted out messages to the screen. Also, I can notice that in this case, the line protocol VLAN 1 changed state to down. And then after the fast Ethernet came up, eventually what should have happened is the interface should have came back up. Let's now check that. If I do a show IP interface brief again, let's now see. Okay, so now we have, if you like, we have up. So layer 1 is up and layer 2 is up. Why is layer 2 up now? Because all of these ports our fast Ethernet 0.1 all the way down to gigabit 0.2, they all, by default, gain access to VLAN 1. They're all on the same virtual local area network. Now, if I want to test connectivity from this PC to the switch, or to do a ping test, I'd need to put it on the same network as this. So in this case, the network is 192.168.1, and we know that because of the IP address we gave the switch and the subnet mask. So what I'm going to do is very quickly, I'm going to pop in here, I'm going to give it a static IP address of 192.168.1.10 with a subnet mask of 255.255.0, and I'm going to give this guy a IP address of 192.168.1.11. Okay, so now what I should be able to do is I should be able to go back to this PC now and run a command prompt, and what I should be able to do is I should be able to ping from this guy 192.168.1.1. Okay, and this might take, the first one might not make it, in other words it might fail, but hopefully the second, third and fourth we get a reply. What happened with this first one? Well, we might have had to do an ARP request, an address resolution protocol. I needed to shout out, hey, 192.168.1.1, what is your MAC address? And when it replied back with the MAC address, then I can actually send the pings and I'd get my responses. If I just hit the up arrow and try it again, indeed I get 4 replies back. So this is going from PC1 to the switch and back. If I wanted to, I could go into simulation mode and I could run that same test. Again, if I just hit the up arrow, you'll also notice that this will obviously work as well. So you can see in this case, if I just move this to the side for one moment, and if I step through this, it's going from PC1 to the switch and back from the switch. So I should get my replies. So that's one reply, so it should come back for a reply. If I do it again, I'll see that I get a second reply. Oh, it just showed me one reply in this case. So I'd need to maybe click a couple of times. Here's my second response going out. Here's my second ICMP. When we do this ping, it does 4 ICMP requests. And once this comes back, we should get 2 replies, which indeed we have, and so forth. So it looks like we've got connectivity there. If I wanted to, I could also do a ping test over to my friend PC2. So I could go back, and instead of going 1.1, I could go 1.11. That was our friend PC2. And what we can see in this case, we've got a response from PC2. If I wanted to double check my own IP address, I could use ipconfig. And it shows me my IP credentials. So I can see in this case, for my IPv4 information, I've got an IP address of 1.10 and my subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, and the default gateway is 0.0.0.0. At the moment, I haven't set that. So at the moment, if this is my administrator and they're connecting to the switch and they're doing some work, what about if this guy was in a different room? How could he administrator the switch? Well, at the moment, he can't. He can't, for example, go in here and, for example, do a telnet and go 192.168.1.1. It will be just flatly refused. So in order for this person to be able to remotely access it over the network, what I would need to do is I would need to, in the comms room when I'm setting up this switch, I would need to go into configuration mode and I would need to enable what's called virtual terminal lines. So in this case, what we can do is to do this. Let's do this. And before we enable the virtual terminal, it's good practice to actually put some passwords on this. So for example, if I just exit out of here and exit out of here for a moment, if I exit back, you'll notice that if I've got physical access, it doesn't prompt me at all for any sort of password. So wouldn't it be nice if anyone accessed my comms room, anyone could go with a console cable, connect to the switch, and they'd have full access. So wouldn't it be nice to actually have a password there to actually prompt them to use the password to actually log into this switch? So we can do that. So let's show you how to do that. When we go enable, I'm going to go conft, and then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go interface. Before I do that, I'm going to go conft. Oh, I've already done that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to enable secret, and I'm going to say the password that I want to give it. Now, because we're just doing a little test here, I'm just going to go enable secret Cisco. So again, Cisco being a very not secure password here, but in this case, for testing purposes, that's the password I'm going to use. So at the moment now, we've we've got basically an enable password. We've just set that up. So what this password is doing is it's creating an enable password. So essentially when I go exit, when I type in enable, now it's going to ask me for a password. So I'm going to type in Cisco here, and it's allowed me into this privilege mode. But what about for anyone connecting to this switch? So that's great that we've got an enable password when we go from user to privilege mode. But what if I wanted a password here, essentially at the very beginning, to even access this switch at user mode? Well, in order to do this, I would need to go back into enable mode, go to conft, and I'd have to go line console 0. So this is, if you like, working underneath that console line, so the console port. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in password, and in this case, I'm going to say Cisco 123. And then basically what I need to do is, in order to enable this, I need to type in login. So to enable this, so that this will actually prompt me for the password. Once I do that, I'm going to hit Control-C to exit out of that. I'm going to exit again. So now, if someone comes in, connects up their console port, presses enter, they're initially faced with a prompt. They need to access the password. They need a password to access. So in this case, I'm going to go Cisco 123, and I'm in. Now, in order for, if I want to go into enable mode, I go enable, and then I'm going to ask for my enable password, which is Cisco. So I've now put 2 layers of defense in it, in a way. I've got a initial password and I've got an enable password. But I still haven't managed, so at the moment, still, this person over here, PC1, still cannot connect over the network to this device. So if I wanted to allow that, using Telnet, and again, Telnet is not secure, okay, it would be sending username and password over the clear text over the network, but just for if you like purposes to remotely manage this, and just for testing purposes, just to show you this, okay, if I go back to my PC, what I can do is I can set up that line VTY, or that remote access. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to go conft, and I'm going to go line VTY 0 to 15. So what this allows me to do is I can have access to these remote ports. So this gives me 16 ports to potentially access. Okay, and these are logical ports, so 16 concurrent users. So what I can now do is I can type in a password. So again, I'm going to make up another password. So again, it's not very secure. I'm going to call this 12345. So a different one for my login, my remote users. And again, to enable this, I'm going to type in a login. So once I've done that, I go back to Control-C. That's now saved to my running configuration. A good idea at this stage might be to copy my run to my start. Okay, and I'll press enter to copy it into that startup configuration file. Now if I go back to my PC, and if I hit the up arrow and try Telnet again, now I'm able to go over the IP network to connect to the switch. I obviously need to put in my password of Cisco 12345, and now I've got access over the network to the switch. So no longer do I need a console cable, which I did need initially. I've now got remote access capabilities. So in this case, I wouldn't usually stop here. What I might do is, in fact, in production, I might not have turned on Telnet at all. Maybe in the next video though, we might look at enabling SSH rather than Telnet. But for now, what we've done is, in this short video, we've simulated connecting to a switch using a console cable. We've set some basic parameters, some device configuration like host name. We've moved into an out of privilege mode. We've secured the device with a basic password, be it a not secure one. And we've also enabled the device, in this case our switch, for remote access, opening up our VTY lines. Perhaps in the next video, we'll show how to set up that SSH to access this in a more secure way, as Telnet is insecure. But for now, we can see that PC1 now has access. Also, for example, if I went over to PC2, if I went in and said Telnet 192.168.1.1, it will prompt me for a password, Cisco 12345, and I'm in. So I've now got access via PC2. So from a management perspective, I can manage this from all of my PCs because these are all on VLAN 1. Okay, they're all on the same subnet, but perhaps, again, if this was a production network, this wouldn't be as secure. We might want to lock this down a little bit further. And one of the first steps to do that would be to enable SSH and to turn off Telnet once and for all. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do enjoy these videos and you find them useful, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, guys.